Joshua Parker here, and in today's broadcast, I am going to be reviewing the the book iGen by Jean M. Twenge. Been really looking forward to this. I've been wanting to review this book for a while since I finished reading it a few months ago. And so it's called iGen: Why Today's Super Connected Kids Are Growing Up Less Rebellious, More Tolerant, Less Happy, and Completely Unprepared for Adulthood, and what this means for the rest of us. So before I get started, I wanted to just kind of give a little background on why I kind of resonated with this book so much. I when I started online business back in the late 90s, things were much simpler. Things have gotten very complicated now, and social media is such a huge part of why today's kids, social media and just like the deep connection with these smartphones and wireless devices is one of the reasons that this book was written, really, and why kids are so different now, growing up so differently and developing so differently than they were 20, 30 years ago, or more. And what this book, what Jean did for this book is she went through all kinds of surveys that had been conducted with throughout the different generations. So these were surveys that were surveying kids at specific times in their lives. So there's no different. It's a real accurate representation of how different these kids were growing up, and because it was these long term surveys that were conducted, and a lot of people sometimes think I look like a millennial. I'm not really a millennial. I'm a bit older than that, but that's it's kind of fun to play around with with that. But because I didn't grow up with all this social media stuff, it's been challenging for me to get used to all of that and develop a healthy balance with it. And I think that's one of the things she gets into with this, as far as how kids' development has changed because of the intricate link with social media and so much more screen time. And I'm going to get into the kind of the nitty gritty of her kind of assessment of this most recent generation that grew up on these smartphones. So this is like the latest generation of kids, the oldest of which is like in their early 20s at this point, early to mid 20s, and and so yeah, I mean, when I was getting started with online business, things were real simple. Back in the 90s, you publish information about an interesting topic, and people find the information on the website, and if they like it, then at some point they might consider purchasing a product from you. It's like it was real simple. But now things are so integrated socially, and the dynamics of that is so complicated. And for me personally, in order to maintain a balance with that, I had to really learn how to use certain types of software in order to keep a distance from it. Any of my friends know that they'll never really find me on social media, even though I have presence on social media for my various businesses. But it's I'm integrating through various types of software. So even though I'm making posts on Facebook and Twitter and putting ads up in different places and and such. And and I encourage you to click on my ads and visit various articles and stuff that I'm posting. But you're not likely to find me in those areas. A lot more likely to get an email response from me or something simple like that, or even reach me on the phone, because I keep a healthy distance, and that's the only way that I've been able to manage that without really the whole thing driving me crazy. Because I've gone through times where I've had multiple employees and had people to manage that kind of stuff, but also gone through times where I've been almost the only person involved in my business, and that's when it's like I just have to rely on various pieces of software to make my life simpler and more balanced, so I can focus on the writing and the videos and broadcasts like this to keep things interesting in my life. So that's kind of what I wanted to share about me in regards to this book. So I in that way I consider this whole world of social media really a double-edged sword. It's very powerful to get a message out, but it also can ruin people's lives, and just because of the way these notifications affect our neural chemicals, and when we're expecting a notification and they don't come. I've learned, and this is the point of this video, is not to teach you how to learn balance with that kind of stuff, but I've learned to personally to shut all of those notifications off, and not have Facebook on my phone and things like that, so I can keep a distance, but getting back to this book, this awesome book, which I encourage you to read, iGen. Basically, she's proposing that this latest generation of kids that's grown up on iPhones and other types of smartphones this is the next generation after the millennials. She's proposing the name of this generation to be iGen, and this is a phenomena where the name of a generation doesn't tend to stick until kind of after we're well into the generation. So who knows whether her name will stick, but she makes a pretty good argument for it. And basically what she's saying is that these kids are growing up more slowly. They're taking longer to reach adulthood. There's a huge emphasis on safety in the growth cycle of children right now, and that's affecting a lot of aspects of childhood and slowing that development process. So it means that the older teens are basically in a similar developmental cycle as like a younger teen was 20 years ago. So it's pretty interesting. She also shows and this is all from generational research and surveys that she's gone through all sorts of data. So she's not just making this stuff up. This is by churning through data. This is a serious data analysis project that she did for this book. And one of the correlations that seems to be pretty clear is increased screen time, which is coming across the board with this latest generation. Increased screen time leads to more depression and more all kinds of problems, but basically increased screen time in internet use, in gaming, in social media use. These are all different aspects of screen time, and the bottom line is that kids are spending a lot less time actually hanging out together in person, and a lot more time hanging out in on these social media platforms, and hanging out playing in these multiplayer games and different things like that, and that there seems to be a direct correlation between this increased screen time and increases in depression and other mental issues. There's also some evidence and some correlation with higher levels of suicide. It's real. I mean, she gets into some pretty gory details in that level. So more insecurity. That basically pointing to insecurity and being kind of a prevalent health crisis now among teens. This is just becoming more commonplace. It's just super common now for kids to be less confident and more insecure with themselves, and because they're just always reliant on more likes and more followers and more friends, and and very heavily influenced by maybe someone unfollowing them, or something like that, which to me, I mean, growing up the way I grew up, that really seems ridiculous to me, but I'm not part of this generation. So and this generation's also statistically less religious. So that's another interesting aspect. Income insecurity is also becoming a big factor among the growing this generation, but increased emphasis on job security. And so these kids are less entrepreneurial statistically, and more focused. They'd be more apt to go for a job that offers them the security of good pay and consistency. So that's pretty interesting. So it's a big shift from what the millennials were, statistically more like a follow your dreams type of entrepreneurial spirit. So we have seen a big shift in the statistics in that on that level. Less emotionally involved in relationships. So that's a really interesting thing that she points out in there as well. And slower to marry and have children than the previous generations as well. So overall, slower to adulthood, slower to procreate. A lot of slowing of maturity, and just in general, and as politically more independent. So that's another interesting aspect that she, more liberally minded, more independent. Not necessarily more leaning towards liberal views, but more independently political minded. So that's pretty interesting. yeah, so that's mostly what I wanted to share in this video. I encourage you to check out the book iGen. This is this, as usual, of my broadcasts, sponsored by our web store, which is healthharmonic.com. So check it out if you haven't seen it yet. And regarding devices and just overall the kind of the way devices have affected our lives, I encourage you to check out our Green 8 Evolution, which is a product that we import from Germany. I've had other broadcasts where I go in more detail on what this is, but you can learn more about it on the website at healthharmonic.com. And then also that's a device to help minimize your exposure to the harmful effects of wireless technology, microwave radiation from mobile phones and other things. And then this is another device for that as well. It's an air tube headset, which allows you to use a wireless device without getting radiation to your ear, because the wire only goes up to this point where there's a speaker, and then the rest of it is just a tube that conducts the sound into your ear. And we've got these at healthharmonic.com as well. So thanks for checking out this broadcast, and I look forward to sharing more interesting information like this in future broadcasts. I'll be doing other book reviews and other cool stuff like that. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.